Hi, I'm Mike Abbey from Motorised Blinds. In this video, I'm going to explain a couple of steps and tips and pointers to help you install your 12-volt roller blind motors. Now, the motor that in particular I'm going to talk about is this lithium-ion battery motor that features this new design zero head, which is the head of the motor just here. Now, soon to be released on the iSeek Blinds website are these DCRF motors. And can you see the wires that are coming out of the end of these? Well, that motor there is going to have this head upgrade very soon. And when it does, that's exactly when we're going to release the DCRF motor. So let's continue with this motor as right now. So as you can see, it's called a zero head because it has no wires, but you're probably thinking, I can see a wire and I know that you can do that, okay? Now, the thing we do with the actual wire itself is we can just use our thumb and we can put the wire into the little groove just like that. So you can see that now the head of the motor has become what's called a zero head motor. Now that's our charging port just there, our micro USB, and that there is our P1 button. Now when you get these motors, depending on the color of the fabric, you're going to get this white cover cap or you're going to get this black cover cap. Now the way they get installed is they've got this nice round section on one side and they've got this flat section on the other side. So we have the flat section facing outward, and it's just like a bit of a horseshoe. We just put it on the top of the motor like that, and then we clip it in position. So you can see that the head of the motor is now beautiful looking. It's nice and slim, and that's why we're able to retrofit these motors now into persons that have chain drives, because the head of that motor is so slim. Okay, now that cover cap can spin around, so when you install it, you can spin that around so you don't see any of the controls or the wires, what have you, hanging out there. Now when we install it, however, it is very important that we move the cover cap around so we can see that flat section. Can you see that flat section on the bottom of that motor there, Charlotte? Yep, that flat section there. Now it's really important that that flat section faces in the down direction, okay? Now, just to demonstrate that, I'm going to explain the two brackets, but this is the male bracket that you get that fits on the motor end. And if we're fitting in a top fixed position there, we can see if I put that bracket on properly, which is there, see how that bracket has now been fitted perfectly, and my controls, which are here, are now facing in the straight down direction. Does that come through, Charlotte? Okay. Now it's the same thing if I'm face fitting my bracket, which means I'm putting the bracket into the wall. Then again, I've got to have that control facing in the straight down position if I'm face fixing the bracket. So can you see that my flat section there marries the flat section of the bracket? So everything I've done is facing straight down. Now that's really important because this is where we've got to get control to put in our charger and to also use our P1 button. Now, once we've done all that, we can then just spin that cover cap around so that all our controls are hidden and we get a really beautiful finish for the roller blind motor, and I think it looks fantastic. Okay. Now, on the other end of the roller blind, you get this little guy here, and this is called a pin end. So you've got your motor at this end, you've got the aluminium tube with the fabric, and then you've got that pin end. And that pin end there fits into the pin end bracket, or the female bracket, which is this guy here. So when they're married up, that simply just sits inside of it just like that, okay? Now, this pin end has a couple of really special little features. The first feature is that it's spring loaded. So when I do the installation, I'm going to explain that in a little bit more detail, but if you need to reach for a bracket because the roller blinds have got too much left and right movement, then you can get this plastic wheel just here and you can turn it in the clockwise direction. And as I do that, if I move my fingers out of the way, can you see, Charlotte, that the pin end is just extending further and further? So that's now extending out and reaching inside my bracket, which is fitted still in that position there. So what I've done is I've taken up any slack that I've got in the roller blinds, okay? Now, if I keep turning it, you'll see it does pop back to the neutral position, and this is the position that I'd like you to start to do the installation of the roller blinds, okay? Now, if I'm going to remove the roller blind, then I get this pin end. I've got the motor or the chain drive in the distance, and I get this plastic wheel and I turn it in the anti-clockwise position. And when I do that, can you see how that pin is now retracted? So of course the blind will now come down and I can take it away from the chain drive or the motor. So that's the two ends. So let's go ahead and do an example of a full installation. I'm just going to pop my gloves on here. Now, one thing you'll not have to do, and one thing that's really, really important, is that you've got to protect the motor. It's not held in with much force into the tube. So as everything I do with this motor, the first thing I'm going to be doing is putting my hand over the motor, and I'm going to protect the motor at all times, because if I don't, and you're up on a ladder and you tip the blind the wrong way, then the motor is just going to come sliding out and hit the floor and probably break, which is exactly what you don't want. So let's get the motor, and you can see that I've got my hand protecting that motor. I don't want to have it fall out, so I'm covering that motor. So Shark, can you come a little bit closer? In this instance here, this is a top fix installation. Commonly it could be used for an inside mount, but I've got my male bracket fitted here, and then I've got my female bracket fitted there. So once again, it's really important that I just let the blind roll down, and you can see the angle I'm holding the blind on. I just let it roll down a little bit, because it's really important that I find that flat section, which is right there, because that has to be facing straight down. It won't go in on a little bit of an angle like that back and forth. It's got to be perfectly straight. And when it's in that way, you'll see how easy it goes in. So let's present it. Shark, can you get nice and close for that one? And when it goes in properly, that's actually incorrect. I'm going to turn it around very slightly, and that's also not right. And that's gone in there perfectly. So can you see how smoothly that went in, and there was no force to push it in whatsoever. And that's just demonstrating how important it is that that flat section has to be facing the straight down position. So what I'm doing right now is I'm keeping a little bit of pressure on the motor. And Charlotte, if I can get you to come across to the other side, you can see I've got my pin end, which is that there in the normal position. And when I present it up the ramp, I'm just pushing, and it just is spring loaded and it clips itself into position. So it's really important. Now you can see the blind's not tight. I didn't force it into the brackets, and I've got a little bit of movement from left to right that I'm really happy with. So I've got the fabric down just a little bit. I've got the motor in the perfect position. I've got the exact right amount of slack that iSeat blinds are set for me. And now I'm ready to do my programming of the roller blind motor. So I hope you found that helpful, and thanks very much for watching.